Dear viewers, dear participants of online forum 100% Tatarstan, we greet you in a very interesting session which is called the system of state procurement, and today we'll have a lot of participants because our guest is Anna Katamadze and we have Yakov Geller, General Director of the shareholding company, the Agency of Procurement, and Iskandar Bogudinovich, and the acting head of the Committee of the Republic of Tatarstan for Government Procurement. So our entrepreneurs are now watching us very carefully because we would like to see how this system of government procurement is developing, and we would like to know your opinion about Tatarstan. Good afternoon, dear viewers. It's a big question, and we can talk a lot about it. We can answer a lot of this question because all reforms of we started the reform from 2006. We had this big reform when we adopted a federal law which is in force everywhere in Russian Federation. It is 94th federal law about state procurement, and in this law we had a lot of new things with automated platforms and the portals, and we got our first electronic procedures. We tried to organize something like electronic auctions according to the paragraph 41 from this law, which allowed to do it. And then step by step in 10 years we turned it into into real industry. And as for the financial instruments which we use, we see that it's a very important issue, and we got more than 300 laws and regulations, well, separate law about state procurement, and so about tariffs, special law 223. We got the IT support and automatizations of control, and we start working with special sites for tenders.
Be it federal, regional, or municipal, we do use this uniform information system for providing for all the transactions, all the steps of the way down to the payment. And of course, there is a possibility now to defend, stand for your rights, Federal Anti-Monopoly Service with very large experience and on the studying various issues in diversity of industries, different decisions of Federal Anti-Monopoly Service, various claims, experience. So there are plenty of schools that are teaching this. There's a profession of such as the state procurement specialist for the procurers, as well as courses for entrepreneurs. If I'm not mistaken, there are about 1 million of people that are providing for this very important side of the economic life of our country. The role of regions of the Russian Federation, in particular Tatarstan, is very important. This has a story that we can dedicate another session to, about the way Yakov Leonidovich and the Republic, together with us, with the federal level players, were taking first steps to develop legal environment in the automation. The Republic and the agency were the first ones to start respective bidding procedures. The catalog of goods and services were generating ideas that back then seemed to be impossible for the implementation of the at the Russian Federation level. There were no technologies available back in 2006, 2007. You might remember we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have any mobile apps, there was no e-signature, no regulation, and it was already back then that the Republic was taking those steps, and we were learning from the Republic or inviting Yakov Leonidovich to high-level meetings in the government of the Russian Federation for us to develop the grounds, foundations for respective decision-making, for us not to have concerns about now moving those technologies into application at the country level. Those were important steps. The Republic of Tatarstan became one of their leaders, one of the regions where you have a Russia-level bidding platform. Gazeta is a place where bidding procedures are run not only at the district, at the Republic or district level, but even those at the federal level procurements. We see how a respective platform is evolving, services being offered, and of course one of the key innovations that many others don't have and have significantly developed here, it's your catalog, your stock place cataloging, tickers, 16-figure codes. That would be very, very important task. That would be very appropriate for the countrywide regional municipal procurement systems. That would be something separate that we could talk. What are acute issues in this area at the federal level today? Right now we are preparing another package of optimization amendments in the legislation, another step of reform. First would be let's take a look at the evolution. In 2004 there was an adoption of back in first step was 94, then in 2009 it was transitioning from paper to electronic document turnover, and that is backed by lots of needs, such as increase the number of participants in the bidding procedures, because it's important that everybody meets respective requirements, such as not to have any kind of legal grounds for fraud during the in-person meetings, and so electronic option became the only possible solution how to separate filing proposals, such as filing parts in confidential mode without disclosing the names and other identifiers of the participants, as well as to show different characters so as to avoid various possibility of fraud during the action, agreements, etc., and collusion. Obviously, all those steps have allowed to level and create barriers for fraud. Right now, on average, we are having 3.5 participants per procedure. Of course, transitioning of construction into bidding procedure was a know-how. When we were sharing that experience with our European colleagues that we did organize this, that was stunning them, because we did develop all the necessary legal basis to allow only pre-qualified participants into the bidding procedures, calculations, guarantees, banking guarantees, etc. And we put it down, the possibility of unbacked banking guarantee provision down to zero. Right now it's impossible. All those banking guarantees are electronic. We have exclude any opportunity for such fraud procedures. Of course, all of this went into the second stage of the reform, 2009-2010, and 2011, a uniform system. Back then it was called a little differently, OS. Now it is linking all the procurement process with financing, with payments, etc. And the third step of the reform in 2018, an important step when not just electronic auctions but all other procedures were transitions into electronic mode. That was the Federal Law number 44 that was significantly amended. And then the transformation of all the platforms and the uniform procurement platforms, and 12 additional procedures became electronic, and all the contests started having various steps, first and second, with the confidentiality, which allowed us to have more competitive procedures. Obviously, there are a number of areas such as large construction, IT developments, etc. Competition there is not that high there. It is obviously there are needs for other ways to provide for higher level of competition there. Now is the fourth step of the reform. That draft bill has been prepared. It was introduced to the government. It was mainly developed by Ministry of Finance of the Russian Federation, Federal Anti-Monopoly Service, as well as Federal Treasury of ours has been taking part. Great many executive authorities, regions have took part in video conference discussions. Very high degree of readiness of the draft bill, over 300 pages, and that's an important step of the reform to de-bureaucratize all the procedures, to decrease the number of, say, unnecessary steps in the way, as well as an important regulation is introduced, have the contract implementation stages. Previous steps of the reform concentrated on the procedural stage, whilst the new draft bill has regulation of contract implementation. In that sense, not just contracts, but supplemental agreements and all the correspondence in the process of the procedure and claims in the process would be now included into the bidding case. Post-contract, that is to link all the steps, all the proper acts for completion of the work and acceptance of the work, so that all the documents are matching, accounting everything that was supplied, linking it with the financial reporting, transitioning the system of state procurement into auto payment mode, if you can call that, and delays in payments for provided services will become thing of the past. I wouldn't want those to steal the time of the overall program. So that's about it. Talking about the next step we are working on, we do very much work on promoting the draft bill. We do hope that parliamentarians would support us in both lower and upper chamber. Today we have stopped at the fact that the entrepreneurs have smartphones. They are in that system of e-procurement with their finger print. They are signing respective documents, and then they are taking part in procedures. Ikh Leonidovich, Mr. Geller, what other projects they have in the pipeline? What's important for entrepreneurs? Well, after the presentation of Anna Timorazovna, there are a few things I would like to mention. First, I'm grateful to her acknowledgement of contribution of the Republic of Tatarstan into the system that it was established and continuous development, the system of the state contracting and state procurement. Thank you very much for acknowledging our contribution at the high level. Secondly, I would like to be rather short and concise because I don't want to waste the minutes what Anna Timurazna is sharing with us. That's probably more interesting than what I can say. Responding to your question, I would like to go back into the area of ideology. Why do we need legislation that is regulating state contracting? Everything that Anna Timurazovna has enumerated is part of very large analytical, and soon it will be a financial system, and maybe it did become the largest state information system by the amount of data. We are in top 3, so it's one of the top 3 largest data systems we have. So the question is, why is that being done? That's obviously not being done per se. In line with the theory of economics, if the state wants to help business, and we all speak about that, state has 2 baskets of opportunities, and I'm often quoting those words. One basket says, if state wants to help business, it gives businesses preferences and various advantages, rents, on rents, on loans, etc., etc. And the second basket says, if the state wants to help businesses, it should give businesses access to take part in the procurement of the regulated organizations. The state is unable to influence households, but it can influence the organizations that it regulates. So whole of the system is to give businesses access opportunity to these 2 systems. That's offering information, education, as well as equal anonymous trading. That's whole of the theory. So now what does Tatarstan does today? The novelty, the Republic's marketing center that we have created based on the knowledge we have is working on education and information that we are sharing. Secondly, Anna Timurazna, being in Kazan, led the meeting on a new idea that we have had the platform for selling pharmaceuticals, etc., etc., a step forward. Some 14 years ago, when you were creating such platforms, that was something new. Right now it's a routine. There are 8 federal level, and like with 223, maybe hundreds, 223, 140, see? So it's not something unique anymore. Now we have created a new system, we are presenting it, and President Menikhanov reported this to the President Putin about this. It's a very interesting model. Anna Timurazovna and the colleagues looked at this, discussed possibly that will have some future. In that sense, Republic of Tatarstan continues performing its icebreaker function. At first, nobody believes this. Then they said, let's think about it. And then everybody says, everybody has it. Who would be surprised now with the bidding platform? Nobody. Everybody has it. Back in 2004, it was unique. Who would you surprise with the 16-figure catalog? Now everybody has it. You are doing this. We are very, very thankful to President Menikhanov for acknowledging this, and when it is worthy of attention, is showing it at the federal level that the colleagues from the Treasury, Ministry of Finance are looking at this experience of ours, using some things, developing some things. It's clear the Republic of Tatarstan is large but small. Take a look at the Russia level. well, scaling that to the Russian level, it's an important task. So once again, coming back, I'm ending up with the same statement. Thank you very much for accepting this, acknowledging this. May we discuss all parties that are part of procurement, because we are representative of state authorities, are on the side of those that are initiating procedures. And that is an interesting and sometimes complex process, because there are some elements not yet fully resolved, such as dumping of participants and prices. We have clear indicators for state program effectiveness, where we have to demonstrate that in figures, in percent, share of small and medium. Request comments of our State Committee on Procurement. How good are we on the side of the municipal and regional authorities? How are we showing? How are we managing in this? How often are we studying? Are we as effective as entrepreneurs in our own activities? Thank you very much for the question. Talking about the state of affairs in the Republic, interacting with the small and medium enterprises, the work is organized and not only at the level of State Committee, there is also Ministry of Economy, there is significant support is organized on the part of various subsidies. Yes, we are, as a state committee, are providing various educational seminars, both for entrepreneurs as well as for representatives of regional and municipal state authorities. We do have optimization packages. It's good that those are taking place in complex situations, because we used to have various amendments very quickly, and it was difficult for people to adapt into those changes, and that requires some time for attention. Thus, we are trying to meet more frequently with clients, explain to them how to act in various situations, organize procurement processes.
And for the people who are interested in this, we standardized our documents. For example, we standardized the contracts for different kind of products, and of course, I cannot avoid topic of with catering, or for food, for example. They bought potatoes and they got the bad quality, and the dumping. To avoid dumping, you have to have very good order, and when we see that we have a lot of falsified products, especially milk products, dairy products, and we had special group in which we had the department of the Mr. Geller was there as well. And we have a roadmap, and we had a list of standard food list, and you have to understand the description of the description of potatoes, like in technical terms, and you introduce it into the list of procurement. We also set maximum prices, which you cannot go beyond, and the price must be unified. You can go less, but no more. And in parallel, we centralized the procurement of milk. And earlier in Republic, we had situations when we had middle people who resellers who shipped falsified milk to kindergartens and children camps. And well, because of the standardization, we involve only big producers of milk, whom is easier to control, or more reliable suppliers, I would say. And at the same time, if you talk about the small procurements, the small shipments, we have, as Yakov offered his site, and my colleagues introduced special, well, we can tell more technical details about it, but you contributed a lot because you gave possibility of the local food producers and local producers of food and services to participate. And now local producers can ship their products into our local institutions and of course can make money. So everybody's happy. I thank you for your comment. Tickers, well, we talked about tickers, so may I ask a question? Well, tell us please, when do you start this second package of laws, optimization package for us? Well, yes, it's an important thing for our listeners because I listen to very attentively and we're not mentioned yet, but I will. And as for our listeners, for our contractors and suppliers, and we have a unified pre-qualification. It will be now part of the legal permission, and of course it will all be built into our electronic auctions, and three main procedures will stay as they are now, and we'll get rid of some unnecessary procedures. There will be the universal qualification, depending, so if you have a maximum price, and you have to have at least some contracts in the municipal procurement, and according to the law 223. Why is that universal? Because it doesn't mean that it's only sellers of potato can participate in this market. Well, it's not right, because it shrinks market, and it's very difficult to follow this market. We don't have catalog of all potatoes, you know, and we have a special preliminary classification. Because it's easy for us to do it, to have special codes and tariffication, and we have a lot of documents involved there. So there is a special regulation, 99, federal regulation, which has special narrow qualification. May I just interfere a little bit just to understand, because you understand what we're talking, but for the viewers, well, just me explain to you very simple. You can paint, any company can paint bench in the street, but as for the building painting, can be based only with the company who has experience, and facade of the building can be painted only by the company who has this experience, and so on and so on and so on. So these are the stages. On every stage, in order to get permission, if you want to paint facades of the building, show 3 contracts for the previous work that you already done it. So it's just a steps by step. Yes, as you simplify. Yes, this is the special system which works for the ones who are involved into the construction. Tariffication is a universal qualification, is different. It is like addition to the already existing one, and it presupposes that supplier understands what he's doing, and you have to have a bank guarantee, there is technical assignment, they understand that the contract can be abolished, and it's not just an easy situation. It's not exactly equal conditions sometimes. One thing, when you have your clients, your client is a commercial company, and in your case you have government as a client, and so it's different in contract. So you have to introduce a universal qualification. It has to be part of the access to the auction, permission to be part of the auction. We talked a lot about that we have complaints. They are just like a professional conflict generators, professional complainers who just interrupt. And we discussed a lot inside of our community. We'll have some professional complaint filers. Well, it's for the contractors, it's a big problem, because it's like, for example, it's a kindergarten, something like that, medicine. And in this law, we introduce exactly the same universal qualification for complaints. At the same time, we have electronic response to complaints. And if we approve it this autumn, we'll do it for everybody. And by the 1st of April, we plan to do it. Well, you know, there are a lot of transitional laws, something 1st of June, then February. I think we continued up to 2023. It is because we need to have a mechanism of enforcement and things. We want to avoid chaos. We want to introduce them gradually, because in the law 44, we don't have a special paragraph about automatization. That is why this legislation is different from others, and we have to do a lot. And this part we plan to do, if we accept it, if we adopt it, in spring. And we plan to do it in spring. And in government we have this plan. And in our plans we have these stages. That's what we plan to do. And it will mean that not fast, just the qualifications in order to complain. So we will check what's going on with some of these contracts, and we'll see that these contracts are close, finished, and there is a transitional stage. We'll see that these contracts are signed, that they will check that they are executed, these contracts. And why? Because execution of contracts must be precise, and we have to have precise information. And when you have electronic document, it will be more reliable. So we'll do it stage by stage. And complaints can be filed only for those who fit the criteria. In the human factor is 0. Here we are changing all register of the unreliable suppliers. We collect the complaints in order to make it automatic, because we had certain requirements so we will filter the suppliers which are not reliable, and we will have only those who have real qualification, who have experience of execution contractors, and not just complaint filers who never actually been participant of this. And there are people who just undermine the trust, and so this is just exactly the same thing, but it just breaks that where you believe that there is a damping, and you believe that you can have a lot of complaints and everything, and business believes that it's useless to do it, that all money is stolen already, and it's a lot of people improve, and laws improve. Legislation in procurement is so advanced that even in Europe they don't have it. It's like a big icebreaker. 44th federal law had a lot of inconsistencies in where a lot of loopholes, legal loopholes, which were used. Oh boy, we had professional complaint filers, and we have the professional ones who professionally for money complain, and they disrupt the procurement. The main question is, I use this case and to ask on a question, why, when, just when, in spring, that means next year, 1st of January we plan, where we will start a new life. Yes, so a lot of changes will be there. They've done a lot, and Treasury did a lot, and Anti-Monopoly Service, they did a lot. They've done a lot. What else do we have? And I would like to show you. I just don't have any documents with me. I just straight from my head saying this. And what I said is a very important component is this: the all legally important correspondence. What we have now, it's we see the abuse of law on different stages. So you send notification and we didn't get notification, you are not ready. And if you didn't get notification, so the contract is disrupted unilaterally. So because we see a lot of papers which are not consistent. So this is the problem, and we need a little bit more time to solve it. So we agreed for the idea of anti-monopoly service that so legally important correspondence of contracts work inside of this information system, and it should be stored like in depositarium in all special storage for correspondence, and it should be a special decision, and anti-monopoly service must be ready for these things. We have to have already prepared documents in case we have a court case, and we have our information system of the independent registration, and all electronic sites are connected to it. And this system, why we have this system? In order to exclude law abuse. For example, supplier says, I wanted to participate in auction, but I was blocked, I was banned. We don't know if it was really blocked or banned, or it's just manipulation. Independent registrator, any participant, because they're all registered in the list of register of participants, can in their account download plugin, and if they have technically ambiguous situation, they can go through like login, can collect the telemetric information, including diagnostics of the internet connection, viruses on his computer, and diagnosis of what's really going on the site. Now it is already working too. Now you can have it. It breaks it destroys the illusion that you cannot work. It is made to let entrepreneurs know that their rights are protected. Any participant can go to anti-monopoly service and can say, look, I was discriminated, I couldn't participate, this is identification of my complaint, and the anti-monopoly service will deal with the specific set of data which is completely protected, which is not compromised, which is has no vulnerabilities. Well, not many people don't use it actively. It's I want to just draw attention of our local represent. It just happened that our branches in 2006, 2008, when these suppliers didn't understand how to participate and how to press buttons, how to log in. It was just the beginning. It appeared along the way. And we needed specially authorized people who can say, yes, I can do it for you, I can help you. With my help, you will get to the biggest system. But the time has come when authorized parties can create a strong competition. It's like forming this kind of a standard document packages. It's a serious help in understanding of suppliers, all innovations, which we have a lot. We just move on with a very high speed, and it's not just we are forced to do that. The state procurement, it's a huge system which involves a lot of industries. That is why we have endless corrections, in endless implementations, good and bad. Some participants want sometimes different things, and that is why we have 300 laws and regulations in this area. You have to be professional. You can't do nothing about it. Yeah, and I'm belittling the fact that you have to be able to write technical assignment. Why do you say damping? I work in the regulation area, automatization, and I am one of the biggest contractors. And what I want to say, the damping for me, it's just something very exotic. Usually it was because of the very low quality technical assignment. I understand that you can do it in the R&D area, in the IT, but in the standard contracts, it's either your contract description was bad, you forgot something, and very often we don't have some reasonable conditions in the contract. And state procurement, it's a professional area. It needs serious preparation.
Which is exactly why we are addressing the authorities. It's like 3D documents. For example, we are going to authorized bodies and are requesting help in formulating the requirements. It obviously depends on different schedule, the specifics of the region, but I believe that your authorized body is a center of competencies for procurement in the region. I have a question to Anna Timurozna, and I hope that you respond to that too. We have discussed quite a lot of questions today, and you touched on the financial topic. So my question would be, will we start seeing some financial technologies developing on these platforms? If I'm an entrepreneur, can we have an app? Are they already available on those platforms? Of course they are. Look, we are not giving loans. They are not selling other things. Treasury system is not about everything, but all banks that are giving banking guarantees, they are working in our system. If they have their own systems, we are integrated with that. We have an open code. Any external information system can be integrated with us, and they can be shaping any product line by bringing their clients into their system, offering different solutions and opportunities to issue them banking guarantees, etc. And I think here it's not the question of IT, it's more of the issue of trust to entrepreneurs when they are giving loans to the end users. I think it's a global economic task. I think it's outside of both our discussion and my competency as well. But since we are talking a lot about entrepreneurs here, there is another important innovation we are foreseeing long term. We plan to develop a rating of business reputation, which is included into the draft bill. There is a general norm, and obviously there we would expect the government comments to regulate what it is, how this should be calculated. But in the concept, the pilot concept worked by us, Ministry of Finance and Federal Anti-Monopoly Service, was to generate a motivating factor to come into state procurement, because there are plenty of tools to demotivate people, meaning that if you do everything well, you pay. If not, you have lots of problems. We are having a rating of non-bona fides. We want to have a register of bona fides providers. If supplier has been meeting all contracts, doesn't have any fines on them, supplying on time and quality products, why wouldn't we give such suppliers to come either without banking guarantee or lowering requirements to funding that obviously would give some priorities to entrepreneurs? There are good ideas. The second question is, how are we going to calculate that? Everybody is thinking to use the uniform data system algorithm, but it's not a miraculous system. It can only calculate based on the information on the execution of the contract, and the execution of contract is tied to transfer and acceptance documentation per contract. Unfortunately, for many years, everybody was concentrating on procedural aspects, but not much about execution. Right now, there are plenty of laws, and we are moving this to standardized format that can be signed by counterparties, supplier, and the contract or service recipient can co-sign this, and the Republic of Tatarstan can transfer that. That's a separate activity that we are doing to make sure that all the electronic acts would go automatically into accounting system. In that sense, it's quite a serious methodological work, very different structure of units, using various classification systems, aggregating and integrating it with the accounting system. We are doing that work together with our colleagues, in this case with colleagues from the Ministry of Finance of the Republic, and once we would move all the procurement to electronic documentation, we would be getting a reliable system that we will be getting automatically and not just be done manually, because at the moment we see that documentation that is being generated is not always reliable. Once we move that to electronic format, once we accumulate for a year or two information about electronically signed acceptance, transfer and acceptance acts, that would give the entrepreneurs the chance. There are such ideas. They are included in the draft bill. Yakov Veniamovich, what would you say? Mine is just a philosophical comment. Once we started having the concept of digital economy, this is probably out of a cult world that they are given the term of blockchain, and you should run to some guru, etc. Whilst what Anna Timrazovna is talking about within this time of the interview is indeed very much part of the digital economy, when we were replacing the offline auctions and procedures. We didn't know the concept. That was like ABCs. Whilst right now we moved into poetry that is generated out of those letters. Of course, I'm familiar with what is being done, but I'm listening with great interest. There are lots of things even for me, because I'm trying to keep an eye on the situation, to know what are the results. This is indeed the digital economy. It's not some occult management. It's not the unknown data, but the things that she says, that's blockchain, big data, etc. I'm just not using that terminology. I'm using this so that it wouldn't seem to you that blockchain and big data is something frightening. She just says that legally based document turnover that is inscribed into the blockchain. Back in 1994, in 2004, when she was writing those articles, I don't know how it is in your case, I couldn't imagine what industry we will be having there. We are developing. And going back back to how I started, thank you very much for your comment that the Republic of Tatarstan is among the leaders of this process. No, that is just an effort to have this electronic e-shop solution. I'm very much interested with what has been done here as e-stock exchange. And I'm quite confident that maybe in 2 years or so we will take a look at what has happened in Tatarstan, then copy this at the federal scale, and we will be saying that, well, it was always that way. Frankly, we always had a perception that to some degree I worked in the Ministry of Economy and responsible for regulation. Right now in the Treasury I was mainly responsible for automation, etc. Whilst back then in the Ministry of Economy I was responsible for regulation when it was being born. And I was always noting the comments of Alexei Yakovlevich and my colleagues in Ministry of Finance, etc. I was thinking about their comments as maybe the Rain Man that are walking around, they storytellers maybe, sure. And we traveled a lot, we shared our experience in Europe of automation, generating services for suppliers and clients, and developing the whole industry. Take a look at the very same Ministry of Healthcare of Russian Federation. It has adopted very thick regulations, and then when you start calculating the initial bidding price for medicinal products, etc., they started having some industrial segments as a continuation, because you can't regulate everything in line with Federal Law 44, as every industry is somewhat different. And that is a bit strange that we are seeing the trend that everything needs to be regulated. We can only go to the competitive procedure once we identify it. And here, now that colleagues are telling us we want to go to Electronic Act because we want to be calculating we want to calculate the reference price for purchases based on the price in the Act. Those discussions that once were fantasizing some 8-10 years ago, just recently, you couldn't imagine that, and now it's a routine. Thanks God that we had such partners as the Republic, and I can name a few other republics and regions. We were very much getting convinced thanks to the heads of the agencies. They were whispering to us, you know what, we are also working on this, we are also automating this. That was the only way how we were being motivated, because it's very hard when you start moving something at the federal level scale. Even though we always had powerful partners, etc., I feel that the window of opportunities is great right now to have another important reform or circle of development, because you can't stop. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for spending your time with us. Thank you very much, dear participants. You feel free to be asking your questions, and we will clearly take a look at them and try to answer. Investments and entrepreneurship.